Hello, everybody, and welcome to the August 22nd Trips and Traps. Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
It's Travers Week, and we have a Travers Week edition of Trips and Traps for you with 4 races from the previous week. All turf races, a lot of turf racing up here at the spa. We love the turf racing because it gives us a good opportunity to get some trip horses. And we'll start off with the 6th race from August 14th. This is the Stroll Overnight Stakes. It was moved to the inner turf course at 1 1/8 for 3-year-olds, and we'll take a look at the 9 Mills, who breaks a little awkwardly on the outside in the 4 Fear the Kitten.
Yeah, I think that Mills, if he had broken cleanly in this race, you really wonder if he could have won the race, because it was a race that featured very little pace, and it was the case on paper. John Velasquez rated very strongly the actual expected speed, and it didn't work out. I don't think that horse ran at all. I don't think it mattered what Johnny did in that case. Fear the Kitten with Alan Garcia, who gave such a great ride to get the victory eventually in the Arlington Million. I don't know what the heck he was doing.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, the horse had a good tactical speed there. You see, he was up with that leading pair, and Garcia's taking him back. I think maybe he wanted to stalk the pace here. He didn't want to be on the lead, so he figured, okay, well, I'll just take him back a little bit and stalk the pace, which is fine up to this point here. And you see Mills, who's hung up 3 wide, and you got to wonder if he breaks cleanly, would he not be 3-4 wide going into that first turn?
Well, or what if he had broken cleanly and they had been a little aggressive with him? Maybe he forces the pace, a little more separation. He's able to get a nice tuck behind them. You obviously have no way of knowing, but I think that Mills, the horse for Brightly Tag, that's showing signs of being a decent horse. He's a half to one of our favorites, Sky Blazer. But I mean, like Sky Blazers, he's making trouble. He's making trouble for himself too, right? I just hadn't even thought of that. But it is funny that they're Trips and Traps horses. But Fear the Kitten seems to be in a good spot, and you wonder, did the horse resent being between horses? Did Alan Garcia not like his position? Because he ends up dropping back by the end of the backstretch, and you think he's going to be eased because Allen isn't even really riding him, and they come in the stretch, and Pierce is going to be eased, and yet he ends up clunking along for 5th. And you do wonder if he had held his position and been there, if he couldn't have won the race.
Yeah, it's a good question because he's up right near the leaders there, and now he's starting to drop back. I couldn't tell if it was getting a little bit tight on him here as well. The other thing I think to keep in the back of your mind, though, for this race, it was originally supposed to be 1 mile and 3/16 on the Mellon turf course. They moved it because we had some rain this day to 1 mile and 1/8 on the inner. I don't know, maybe this horse wants more ground and he's just getting out sprinted here a little bit around the turn when the race starts going?
I don't know. All these are questions I can't answer. He didn't mind the giving the ground when he didn't run that badly in his turf debut in the Virginia Derby, where he had a super wide trip. That was an 1/8 of a mile more. I don't know, but as you see him back there, Allen's not even riding him. I literally thought he was being eased.
He's going to be last for sure.
And he ends up, as you'll see, closing. Now, Mills, on the other hand, he attacks. Now, it was a moderate pace, but he gave up the position early by breaking slowly. He was always a little behind the 8 ball, chasing 3 wide. I thought he held in there well and balanced the books one because of an exceptional ride by Javier Castellano. And Javier's riding at the top of his game right now, not just leading, but he's really riding very well. He gets a lot of good mounts, but he's making the most of them. And this was a case. But Fear the Kitten's a horse who I think ran well in his turf debut, better than he'd ever run in synthetic before. And I don't know what happens here. I'm going to be dogging him and betting him somewhere.
We should have had the guys in the truck try to freeze it as they hit the wire there, because Fear the Kitten was right in, with the rest of the pack of horses there behind the front 3. So, a horse that clearly to me was going to be last at about the 3/16 pole and, might have been beaten about 15, 20 lengths in there. Comes back on. You don't see the run on the screen, but comes back on and makes a sneaky run there to the finish.
Lost by 3 lengths in this race. The field was kind of bunched, but the point is what was going on before that and that he was able to finish up, because it looked like he wasn't finishing.
All right, we'll take a look at the 5th race now from August 16th, the maiden special weight for fillies and mares, going 5.5 on the turf. We're taking a look at Bobby Flay's Sweet Potato.
Hey, one of the pet peeves, at least my pet peeve, when we talk about here, are riders' insistence on staying inside. The best possible trip on the turf is saving ground on the turn and angling out into the clear in the stretch. Now, obviously, the best laid plans sometimes don't always work, and it's not that easy. It's very easy to sit and watch races and say the rider could have done this or should have done this. But this seems to be a case with Sweet Potato where the rider intentionally seemed to want to stay inside, and if she had gone to the outside, Sweet Potato, I believe she would have won.
Yeah, I don't really get what's going on here because she's down inside now. You can see the way she's carrying her head a little high there. I don't think she likes being down inside, in behind horses there. It's just, gut feeling that I have. And then the rider's going to try to angle out. We'll take a look and pause.
She's
right
inside
there
the winner here, Eric.
She's inside the winner, yeah. She's going to try to angle out at the top of the stretch, but, for some reason she tries to angle out here and then goes back down inside. At this point, I thought she would have been better off just going around the whole field.
Yeah, or why not following that other horse or doing it? Maybe she thought the horse outside of her would drop off, and at this point, she really has no choice. And at this point, she has to make a second decision. She has to say, what am I going to do here? But she ends up hitting righty, directing the horse to the inside, and we never feel like horses get their momentum as easily going on the inside. They may eventually get through, but it takes them a little longer. So you can see the horses running at the end. And listen, you could argue, hey, it was a race that the pace have collapsed a little bit, and maybe the best horse in the race was the third finisher, Heir of Distinction. But it does feel like she could have won that race, and I think next time they get together, maybe she'll get it done.
All right, yeah, I think I'd be interested to see what she does with an outside trip there, an uncovered-up trip. I think she'd be a little bit more happy there. Anyway, we'll take a look at our next race now. 2 races from the 19th to wrap up the show. Race number 9, a non-winners one allowance optional claimer for fillies and mares going 9 on the inner.
Yeah, this was a race that featured a ridiculously slow pace. This looked like the inner all over again. I think a lot of the riders said, oh, there's some speed sign on here, and there was a lot of grabbing going on. And also, the worst trip that you can get in the turf race is buried on the inside in a slow pace, because you will never get out.
No, you're never going to get out, and you're just going to be stuck in there as horses rally around you and come to the outside at the top of the stretch. You're just going to be jammed up down in there. Now, Precarious is a horse that has shown speed in the past, but for some reason ends up in 7th position early on under the wire for the first time.
I have to say that I sort of fell victim to that, too, because I had kind of liked Precarious a little bit. I think I picked her 2nd or 3rd, thinking that there would be more pace in here and maybe she'd be able to, relax a little bit early. Unfortunately, it seems like the riders are making decisions far too often before the gate opens. Instead of letting their horse get position going forward, as Migliori likes to say, they're coming out of the gate and they're grabbing. And we saw this very much so in the next race after this, a 1 3/8 race, where everybody was really grabbing. And I think that in doing so, they don't give themselves an option if the pace is slowed down.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and the pace is pretty slow up top here. The eventual winner of the race is the number 9, She's Not Lazy, who's right up there on the outside. The 7, Keening, is down toward the inside. These two run around the track, essentially, and as we see the other horses in the back try to get in the mix a little bit more, you have Strike Charmer, who's dropped off down to the rail now, and Precarious, who's in a precarious position in between horses.
Yeah, and I just don't know why Edgar insists on dropping to the rail race after race. Edgar, this guy is one of the top riders in the country, and he just is constantly putting himself behind the 8 ball, burying horses on the rail, and it doesn't work out that often. It's interesting. Yeah, it's a fine line between saving ground and putting yourself in a position where you can't get out of it. It just seems like it happens far too often. So I wonder why he does it. Precarious has lost all position, is back to last. What chance does that horse have, considering they're crawling up front?
Yeah, he's going to go into the stretch in about
Still
the four-path there, and then going to go back down toward the inside. And you see Strike Charmer, who's really in a tough spot there. Got 2 horses, as you mentioned, setting the slow pace in front of him. Joel Rosario's not letting him out on sustain there, so Strike Charmer is just going to have to, grin and bear it and take it down inside there. You can see the horse trying to get out, head toward the outside. Prado's trying to get him out, but there's just no room there. Precarious also finishing up in behind horses, too.
Now, Strike Charmer was coming off a maiden win for David Carroll. It's unlikely we'll see him at Saratoga. We could see him at Belmont, or her at Belmont Park. You could also see her at Kentucky Downs. People should keep an eye on that Kentucky Downs meet. It's 5 days, I think, of racing this year. Some on the weekends, but some on Mondays and or Tuesdays. And they're going to be very big fields. They're big purses this year. It's going to be interesting racing. So keep your eye out for horses that you've seen at Saratoga, seen other places. Otherwise, you'll see this horse at Churchill Downs or Keeneland. But wherever you see her, Strike Charmer is a horse that ran better in here. And I also think Precarious is a horse. I don't know how good she is, but she certainly was compromised badly in this race.
One more race to bring you. We'll look at the 10th from the 19th. It's a New York Red Maiden special weight for fillies and mares going 5.5.
And maybe I'm just going to keep losing money on this horse by light of day, but I'd liked her off a big trip in her first start, and she draws the unlucky rail in here, breaks a step slowly, and ends up getting completely shuffled out of the race. Now, as we continue on, and we'll just tell you the things that happen, you'll see it as you're watching, and Eric can point this out to me. She does kind of lug in a little bit in the stretch, and you do wonder a little bit about that, turning her head a bit, but she is a horse that just lost all chance early in the running.
Yeah, loses all chance down inside here. It's just a tough spot to be in. Going 5.5, you're going to get some horses come back into you if you can't get off the rail, and that's exactly what happens here with the one horse in here by light of day, who steadies a little bit going into the turn there, and then has about 8-9 lengths to make up here around the far turn.
Yeah, you just wonder if she was a horse that had an outside post or somewhere, and she was able to get better position. If she just could have been a little bit closer, and don't forget, it's not a race where a horse has made up a ton of ground, so she was very much behind it. I wish she had finished a little bit, and I didn't like how she was turning her head as well there. Somewhat of a concern for me. It'll be interesting to see if she shows up relatively soon for John Hurt, or not maybe at the end of this meeting, but also at Belmont Park, where obviously we will run turf sprints. She can run it.
Yeah, I mean, she debuted, I think, June 23rd, rather, so you're looking at about almost 2 months of this race. So, did have some time between starts there. We'll see if John gives her a little bit more time for the next start here, but lugging in, who knows? It could just be a reaction to how she's feeling on the day. Maybe she needs some blinkers or something like that. Who knows? Maybe John can get that figured out by the next time.
I will be losing money on her at least one more time, Eric. I am not giving up on By Light of Day.
All right, well, that'll do it for us here on Trips and Traps. We like your perseverance.
I'm nothing if not. I'm perseverance. You like to lean on horses that win too much. You pick a horse that wins. Sometimes you'll pick the horse going forward. Me, I prefer horses that lose. Once they win for me, I'm done with them. It's just a different sort of personality. We could always use your help. Trips and Traps at NYRInc.com.
Thanks for watching.